Now for the regularly scheduled Dharma talk. Folks, anybody in this room never heard the term or wants to know what the word sutta means? All right. Sutta is a word from the Pali language, which is the language, the written form that the Buddha's teachings were first written down in. And this word sutta has a common root with our word suture, the way we thread and tie things together, or the way we join things together. It also reflects the word sutta, suture, thread, like a thread of a conversation. So these suttas, these teachings, what happened was the historical Buddha passed away, and they called, and I'm sure they were already all there, and you can imagine the breadth of experience of the passing away of your teacher. Some people were crying, gnashing their teeth, stoically sitting. Perhaps some were laughing and dancing, who knows. But after the passing of the Buddha, they all got together and they just went through the room. What did you hear him say? What did you hear him say? What did you hear him say? I was there that day. He told you to stop being a knucklehead about this and that. I heard it. And that's how they did this kind of game of lateral telephone. And of course, luckily for them, the Buddha's cousin and attendant for the last 25 years of his life, Ananda, was there. And he was there by the Buddha's side 24/7. So he heard it all. So they were able to sit there and verify and triangulate and remember and remember. So these teachings were then recorded into these suttas, these blocks, these conversations. In one such sutta, the Meghiya Sutta, we have this beautiful teaching. Remembering that all signs, symbols, words, and systems of language are imprecise, imperfect vessels for meaning. This is pretty close. So we're going to go with this. And of course, the one that I initially sent to Keeson to put in the email, I found one I liked better, so I changed it. So, that's how that goes. Number 1. Thoughts, when followed and clung to, agitate the heart. Pretty straightforward. I want to bring your attention to when followed and clung to. To me, this is the kind of load-bearing piece of this. And you can substitute thoughts for anything at all that ever contacts your field of awareness. The sound of a door slamming when you're trying to meditate. Remembering that hard email you have to send later. Remembering you have to be at work at 4 a.m. tomorrow. Memories, thoughts, plans, situations, difficult people in your life. When followed and clung to. Now, this is completely normal. By the way, is there anyone in this room that doesn't make kind of an intuitive sense to, or haven't experienced that firsthand? Okay, good. If there's anyone here who hasn't, yes.
For me, it has to be pure. I mean, what happens if you have a really good thought and cling to it?
That works too.
That's agitating the heart too?
Isn't it? Do you ever have a good experience, and then then the next time you have that experience and it's not as good, are you ever disappointed in that? Have you ever been disappointed in something that changed? You might be a perfectly awakened Buddha.
No.
But if you aren't, then chances are, because clinging and following, this is one of the things I wanted to remember to say. The Buddha uses this word clinging, and there's a whole word cloud that goes with it. The source word is tanha, which is translated as thirst. But tanha is any time an object of the senses or the heart-mind, the sixth sense, enters our field, and then and that works both ways. I want this, and I want it to never change and never run out.
Right.
Or, I hate this, I'm never going there again, they're jerks.
Well, therein lies the conundrum for me.
Okay,
Because agitate
yeah.
is connotated as bad, but agitate could also be good.
Tell me a good agitation in your heart.
I love that I'm going on vacation.
Is that agitating?
It's great agitation,
Okay.
but it's
What happens if you don't go on vacation?
disappointment.
Yeah. Let me leave you with this. There are two kinds of happiness in this world. There's the happiness that is a product of causes and conditions, which is fragile, temporary, and can never be permanent, personal, or perfect. And then there's the happiness that is the nature of your own heart mind already. That happiness that you are, that Buddha mind. And this is like the hard line. This is like people, they start reading Ajahn Chah and they like him until they get to when he says something like, throw away happiness and sadness. And you're like, hey, buddy, I would like a little more happiness in my life. What he means is, any happiness that is the product of temporary causes and conditions, enjoy them and let them go. So,
Right, but reading that,
right.
thoughts when followed and clung to agitate the heart. Good, agitate good, or good, agitate good. Not sure.
Yeah, I think the fundamental model of the Buddha's teachings orients around the letting go of attachment and clinging to anything.
Oh, yeah.
Think about Ajahn Chah again. Never try to be anyone or anything. Don't be a meditator. Don't be enlightened.
Right.
Anytime you identify, anytime you cling to, you will suffer. Because no identity could possibly ever encapsulate or embody you. You are this ungraspable, infinite patterning of cosmic energy in an infinite, ungraspable patterning of cosmic energy. Any identity is temporary, transitory, fungible, contingent, and maybe a blast. But you got to leave it at the door. So if you are prepared, which it sounds like you are, to just participate fully with great joy in the ongoing drama that is life, then you're already there. Good job. You got it handled. That instruction might not even be for you then.
Okay.
But that's where I'm going. That's what I'm getting at.
Thank you.
For everyone else,
I gotta shine my head.
the light's right on you. This also is completely natural. Our lives are important. You know, clinging and following to a thought, to a feeling, to a situation, to an emotion. You know, people, places, things, situations demand our most clear and open attention and our most tender care. How wonderful. How incredible to have a life full of people and duties and responsibilities and occupations and goals and dreams. Wonderful. But are you being attentive to the people in your life, to these situations as they arise? Or am I following and clinging to my fabrications around that thing, that person, that situation? The constructions, my predilections, my predispositions, my concepts that arise for me, that I have maybe painted over on them. And this is just a completely normal function of awareness. Your open, vast, luminous awareness that illuminates everything it touches. In the moment, it contacts or it is contacted by a point of contact arising, it takes on the shape, color, and characteristics of the thing that arises. This might be a little slippery. And in the words of my wife, maybe you'd like to do that on a full day retreat. But it's a really important thing. Like you looked at that line and you were like, nah, right? So, or you could look at that, my vision, the organ of vision, the act of vision, and the object of vision all arise together. And now I'm looking at this thing. And vision, which a minute ago could have been completely open, vast, formless, and infinite, now is circumscribed, informed by, and maybe even attached to what I'm looking at, what I'm perceiving. Which is fine, except the attachment part. This is why we have this kind of real emphasis in Buddhist meditation on practicing bare attention. Because bare attention at the moment of contact is absent judgments, opinions, stories, clinging. I hate that. I love that. I have to buy that mural. So help me God, if I have to look at that weird mural for another minute, I'm going to lose my mind. Whatever. That's fine. These are all fine. These all arise after. But that open awareness at that moment of contact is absent any judgment. And the Buddha is of the opinion that that is the most intimate. That open, non-attached is most intimate. Before my stories and my language and my mental imputations and my opinions, which are all totally valid and totally important. That's how I know not to paint that at home on my wall, because I won't like it. I'm just using the mural because it's right there. The mural is perfectly lovely. Actually, this is giving me Sunday school vibes from my childhood, so I'm liking it. But just, it's so nice to know that I like this drink and not that drink. It would be terrible to drink a drink you don't like for 50 years. You get to have preferences, but just be alert. Be awake to the experience. Am I making a story? Am I constructing something? Am I, my favorite word in the world, fabricating, which means both making something and lying, right? That's a fabrication. You're telling someone they're lying. And in the end, all construction is fabrication. All mental construction is a fabrication. That beautiful mural is just as it is. And any story I have about it is just a fabrication, just a story. And that goes for every person in your life, every point of sensory contact, every feeling, every thought, etc. Number 2, not understanding this, we run here and there. Now, you might like to run here and there. Leaving that aside, this is the idea that we are driven. We are driven by our predilections, our ideas, our clingings, our aversions, our opinions. Not understanding this, not seeing it, not comprehending it, that we are under the influence, right? I love that. That's another good one. Under the influence. Usually means, right? But we're all under the influence. Every second of every day, to a greater or lesser extent. The more awareness you can bring, the better. But, I'll never forget driving south on PCH at 1 p.m. and I was driving and a lady got, let's say, a person in a white Mercedes, real close to make that left onto Loynes if you're a local. And I was enraged. I was so upset. And luckily I got mad enough, fast enough that I got curious. I'm like, you're pretty hot about that. Like, That's not even the worst thing that's happened today. And I was sure in that moment that she was the worst thing in the world. She was the reason why our whole society is crumbling. I have those kinds of thoughts during the day. And I was able, thankfully, through my lifetime of being a terrible meditator, of being like, hold on, what's going on here? And I was able to trace it all the way back to, well, I don't want to go to work right now. I hate closing the store. And even further back. And I'm hungry. And my left shoulder hurts. And I'm afraid I'm going to injure it at work. I had this whole basket, tapestry of pain and discomfort and frustration and aversion. And this poor woman's just trying to make a left on loins. And she's, ... So I was under the influence of this aversion and this physical discomfort and fabricated this whole thing about this poor lady who's just trying to get where she wants to go. Maybe she's running late. We can fabricate a whole bunch of skillful reasons why she would be driving that way. And it even wasn't that bad. Okay. This is a problem because when we can't see what's going on, when it's going on in the shadows, it's running the show. If you don't know it's operant, it's running the show. This is like in ancient Chinese mythology. That's the reason why the dragon is the most powerful. Because the dragon only is seen when they want to be seen. They're never there when you want to see them, or strike them, or catch them. They were never there. That power of the wizard behind the curtain is only powerful until you pull the curtain. I'm the great and powerful Oz. Not anymore, kid. I see you. I see you, Mara. Anybody? This is one of the more often repeated phrases in the teachings of the Buddha, where somebody catches themselves doing a thing, and they're like, "I see you, Mara." Mara is like the ancient Buddhist word for like this guy. It's like, "Oh, I see. I'm doing a thing. I see you, Mara." Okay. And under the spell of that ignorance that something is running behind the scenes, that my temporary lenses have become my eyes. My cognitive filters have become the way I view the world. Under that influence, I run here and there. I do this, I say that, I think this, and the synergy between thought, word, and deed is self-replicating and self-reinforcing, which isn't a problem if you're self-replicating and self-reinforcing, wholesome, open, available, kind. But very often it's not, right? How many of us have done or said something and then been like, "Oh my God, why did I do that? I don't even know how many times I said something. It was like, oh, like it could have been a lot worse than it was." It actually makes perfect sense why you said or did that from the point of view of the person that you were when you were under the influence unknowingly of that clinging, that aversion, that cognitive filter. Remember that whole thing about awareness into consciousness? When I'm driving and I'm thinking about lunch or my kids or going to work or anything, and then something enters my field and I just grab on and chew on it, and all of a sudden, this is an interesting, I wish Rob Nees were here, this is an interesting thing where the model for rebirth in this ancient Buddhism is completely continuous, second by second. There's no special kind of, you die and now you're, I don't know, whatever. It's actually, the mechanism is second by second. We're all constantly taking birth. You right now are taking birth as calm or perplexed by what the hell I'm trying to say, or content, or whatever. And, if that door bangs, then if I'm not careful, Now maybe I'm taking birth as like angry Franz, and I'm having this whole psychodrama about, I'm going to fix that door, because they can't fix it. Why did they? No need to. I don't need to. I don't need to take birth as that guy. I don't need to take birth as road rage Franz or whatever. I can just be aware of what's coming up for me. And that person isn't my problem in the end anyway. And I just want to make sure that I don't leave you with the impression that your alarm, if you're driving and someone drives dangerously next to you, is bad somehow. That's a really great opportunity. Your body and nervous system is trying to keep you safe. And anytime a strong emotion comes up, how beautiful, how wonderful. This is, hey, pay attention. This is important. Like, what a wonderful thing that you're a functioning being, and you have a whole emotional architecture that goes, hey, 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 hey. And very often, either out there or in here or both, it's inviting you into your most clear, bright, attentive way of being. Story optional. Just what's going on right now. And, something happens, in the words of Jampa to his teenage son. He says, his stepson says, oh, but this happened, angry about something, some slight or some injustice. This happened. And Jampa says, what's happening now? I know it happened. What's happening now? That's where the money is. Your activation, your upset. That's what's happening now. Pay attention to that. That's the important part. Number 3, one who is ardent and mindful. I have to. Has anyone here never heard of the Satipatthana Sutta? Hell yeah! Wait. Are you telling me everyone in the room has heard of the Satipatthana Sutta? Okay, all right. Sorry, I got a little excited. Okay. Little pun. Satipatthana Sutta is a conversation, a teaching, where the Buddha kind of lays out a kind of macro architecture for the practice of meditation. And he uses these 2 beautiful words in describing the kind of orientation that one brings to practice optimally. And the words are atapi and sati sampajana. Atapi is very nicely translated as ardent. And ardent is one of those old-fashioned romantical words that I love. Think about like an ardent lover, or an ardent, you're like hanging on every word. It's so close, it's so intimate. You just want to, like if you have a bite of a delicious meal and you close your eyes to really savor it. Atapi, the root of the word is tapa, which means burning. So with burning, with warmth, with heat, a kind of attention. And sati sampajana is this great word that a nice translation of it could be something like attending to, or drawing close to, paying attention to, clearly knowing, without judgment, critique, chatter, storytelling. Just this kind of open, like, what's this? One who is ardent and mindful to what? To their life as it arises, moment by moment, to the thoughts and feelings, to their experience. This is one of the macro themes of this verse and kind of the Buddha's teachings writ large. I think my problem is the thing. My problem is how I'm holding the thing. That's what's going on. Have you ever heard I'm making a big deal out of it? I'm making it a thing. Don't make it a thing. Don't get weird. But that's what's happening. I'm making it a thing. That's the opposite of atapi sati sampajana. Atapi sati sampajana is anything that enters my field, especially if it's like a strong emotion, some kind of physiological activation. It's inviting me, it's demanding my most intimate, ardent, close attention, clearly knowing what's arising for me. These qualities are what we are trying to cultivate on the cushion and off the cushion. Strengthen my ability to be present to triggers both small and big, present in an open, spacious, non-reactive way. We do that on the cushion by direct experience. Has anybody been on the cushion and you're like, I can't bear this itch, this thought, this feeling, this whatever, and it just changes completely on its own. It just either goes away or just morphs, unravels, shifts, space opens up. It wasn't even that you did anything necessarily. Maybe the guy stopped breathing loudly or whatever it was. Or maybe they didn't. And you were able to just kind of be spacious around it. Something opened. That's what we're cultivating on and off the cushion. If you resist, if you fight, if you try to push away, if you try to... Has anybody here ever rationalized their way out of a bad emotion, a bad feeling, a depression? It doesn't work. Maybe you can have, skillful patterns of thinking or skillful wisdom around that. This guy knows what I'm talking about. Like, hey, you can't win all the time, or they can't all be zingers, or, and that can help lead the way. That can be supportive, wholesome thinking around it. But the real power is just in the presence to it. Simple presence naturally diffuses activation, suffering, etc. And again, remember, the thing isn't going anywhere necessarily. Your boss isn't going anywhere necessarily. The person in your family that's a complete pain in the tuchus to deal with might not be going anywhere. But you cannot control the person in the Mercedes or your boss or the person in your family that's a pain in the tuchus. You can only work with your experience. And that is the point of contact. That is the most skillful place to work. All right, final line. One who sees and understands, lets them go without a trace. If it's something we're clinging to, that we're chewing on, letting go might feel like just not fighting it. That's the funny part. 9 times out of 10, we don't even have a hold of the thing we don't like. We have a hold of our reactivity around it, and we're chewing on that. And if it's resistance, if the reactivity is taking the form of resistance to something, letting it go might look something like just making space for it. I don't like this. I'm mad about it, and that's okay. I'm just going to be present to my experience. Part of it, I think letting go is sometimes hard for people to hear. I know I don't always care for a talk like that. Because to me, it brings to mind like everything in my life is precious. My children are precious. My wife is precious. My job keeps us fed. This bowl is precious. Everything in my life is precious. I don't want to get rid of any part of it. It's like imagining holding something precious and dropping it, letting it go. And I think that's just a linguistic problem. Remember, all words, signs, and systems of symbols are imperfect, imprecise. They're not perfect vessels for meaning. The letting go that we're talking about here is less like this and more like noticing that I'm doing a thing and being like, oh, I don't need to do that. I can just hold it till I need to make the ding sound again. That's the letting go we're talking about. your worries about your children, about our nation, about the world, they might not go anywhere. And hopefully your children and the nation and the world won't go anywhere, unless maybe you would like your kid to move out at this point. But can you hold it? Can you hold it in a way that is open and spacious, like your awareness naturally is, before you fabricate, before you construct? The openness, the atapi sati sampajana, the warm, tender, intimate, clearly knowing. Also, I can't imagine anyone wants to hear, if you've ever shared your heart to a person, I'm really worried about my friend or my job or my relationship or whatever, and they're like, let it go. That's probably like never good to hear. It's like telling someone to relax. Telling people to relax has never worked in the history of telling people to relax. So I get it. But we're not actually letting the object go. We're trying to practice letting my chewing on, clinging to, fabricating around, making a thing out of. We're trying to just reduce it, trying to let that go. Remember, everything is always changing all the time. You are always changing all the time. The issue at hand, the situation, the problem is always changing all the time already. So it's funny how even the clinging is dwelling on or making a thing out of a problem that probably has already changed. And even my way of relating to it in that same way is changing all the time if I let it. Anicca, or impermanence, one of the three marks, this is actually good news. It's like, the bad news is, this drink will be done. It's impermanent. I'll drink it all and then it'll be gone. But it's also good news. The good news of everything is already constantly flowing, constantly changing. So where's that thing that I hate? Where's that person that I can't stand? Where's that situation right now? It's kind of actually ungraspable. But I can tend to my feelings around it and allow those the space to change, to shift, to move, like it always is and wants to do anyway. So, believe it or not, I know, shocking, I have many, many more pages. But I just want to kind of leave you with maybe just with that. I'll leave that whole page undone. Just any time you catch yourself chewing on, clinging to. In my case, I'm a big catastrophizer. That's what I like to do. If there's something I don't like, I can guarantee it'll get worse, and I won't be able to stop it, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I'm the kind of person who gets a cold, and I'm like, to my wife, hold me. This is how I go. I'm like it's obviously over. Every pain is cancer. Every sickness is COVID. And I act real cool about it because I'm like a meditation teacher. So I'm, oh no, I'm good. I'll take some ibuprofen. I'll be fine. But rest assured, somewhere in there, I'm like, this is how I go. All right. So anyway, so just notice what your go-to is. That's your homework for the rest of your life. Notice the ways you clean. This is, this is the kind of the beautiful backwards step of the Buddha. Instead of going up towards esoteric, spiritual, refined, abstract, the Buddha's like, I really want to get to know the way I make myself suffer. And that's what he said. I explored suffering to suffering's end. So I invite you to do the same. When you catch yourself suffering, Good news, bad news, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. But when you catch yourself suffering, can you, instead of trying to explain it away, or fix it, or stop it, or other it, just notice, am I doing a thing? Like you can feel very passive. Something's making me suffer. Is it me? What am I doing? And then bring that tender, that ardent, clear, and just, drop it in there. Am I doing a thing? Can I identify it? And you don't even have to do a 30-year Freudian analysis around it. That's one of the great things about the Buddha's techniques. He's like, rest assured, we've all got enough trauma for 100 million lifetimes. Just notice it at the point of contact. What am I doing? And then just give it space. That's another way of saying let it go. Make space for it. Open to it. Soften around it. Breathe into it. And everything is already changing, shifting, unraveling. Thus ends my prepared remarks. May it be of service to you and for the benefit and happiness of all beings. I will now open the floor for your questions, comments, challenges, and protests. Yes. Yes.
Just tell me what on the number 4.
Yeah.
What you think the word then refers to? I'm not sure.
The thoughts that we cling to.
Oh, then, okay.
Thank you. Great clarification. There was another hand I saw earlier. Yes.
There was a moment when you held, I have my glasses on, you held something,
Oh.
not that one, and you were holding on to it really, really tight, and you were talking about fabrication, construction, and everything else. And then you kind of released the hold, and it helped me understand the energy that is captured in our grasp state or our moving away from our aversions. And connected to a story. So I work with kids.
Wait, hold that story. I want to bring the Zoom up to speed because that's huge.
Okay.
What you just said. That's the one thing. Cleaning and aversion, fabrication, it's exhausting. And some of us are just so used to it. It's what we do all day. We're like, this is just life.
Yeah.
But this is something the Buddha understood intimately. He's like, oh my God, I'm constantly being like a rag doll slammed back and forth. Like, don't like, or in Sanskrit, rag, dvesh. It's exhausting. You don't need to do it. You can just be present to whatever it is. Zoom, that's part 1. That's the setup for something I'll relate, unless you can already hear it, for a great story. Thank you.
So the story is middle school, urban setting, 2 girls, there's a room where there's going to be a fight, and one girl is like, so, it's just a rumor, and the other one is ready to fight. And I was like trying to help her understand, see how she's dealing with it? It's just a rumor. And she's like, it's not true. I don't know if it's true or not. And so it kind of brought back the idea of the energy and how much energy is raptured in that reactivity that we see even in young children. Because another thing you were saying is like, from the very beginning, and I'm looking at the construct or the object, am I attaching to it? And do children, when they're born, know what they're looking at, and do they have any of this, right? So when do we start bringing all this attachment to our wants and needs, blah, 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 and is that all connected to some sort of energetic piece?
So let's say that a significant portion of this is given to you. A significant portion of our habitual kind of patterns of reactivity is kind of handed to us by our culture, by our family, by our society. You know, communication lives in the left prefrontal cortex until age 5 or 6, and it migrates to the right. Which, imagine how many times between age 0 and age 5 you did not receive the kindness, compassion, love, and care that you needed. And it's not even because your parents were monsters. If anybody in this room who's raised kids, baby goes, wah, and you're like, here's a bottle, here's a carrot, I'm going to change the scenery, I'm going to bounce you, you need to be swallowed, you need to be changed. You just run through you're just frantically trying to supply the needs to bring them back to homeostasis, to balance. So, as far as where it comes from, every time there's a traumatic experience, especially around communication and relationship, that's a little point of a little stick, a little trauma. And all that energy gets tied up in there. This is one reason, and this is completely off the subject, but the Buddha talked again and again, talking about meditation, about when you start to allow this energy that already wants to be free, already wants to unravel, and gets caught, especially in these kind of physiological nervous system, body memory type stuff. And I know there are people in the room who have experienced this, you'll have waves of chills, you'll have waves of euphoria. He talks about different ways that this kind of emotional trauma energy, when it unravels in the body, feels like bliss, feels like warmth, feels chills up and down, shivers, all kinds of really interesting nervous system phenomena that if you sat for long enough, you will eventually experience one form or another. So that to me seems like a big tie-in. Before you can communicate and you're trying to get your needs met, and no one in this world is in a perfect situation, especially in early childhood. So that would be, to me, a big tie-in. So first noble truth, there's suffering in human life. Addendum number 1, especially in childhood. So it's maybe sad but true. Okay, great question and great story. And I love that about the one girl who was like, someone's saying a rumor, I don't care. It's just rumor, it's just words. Like literally this world looks like it's made of money and guns and buildings and land. It's just made of ideas. It's just made of feelings. There are nations at war killing each other over ideas and feelings. I don't feel safe. You have to go. So, anyway, never doubt that this is a very important field of study. So I'm going to wrap there. Again, your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to just notice. Notice when suffering is arising. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's gross. And just see if you can notice yourself doing a thing. Like having a hand clasped habitually so long you don't even notice it. You just feel the pain. And as always, everything on this path is founded upon, nourished by, and bears fruit in loving kindness and compassion. I invite you to repeat these simple phrases after me. May all beings be happy and safe from harm.
May all beings be happy and safe from harm.
May all beings be healthy in body and in mind.
May all beings be healthy in body and in mind.
May all beings be peaceful and free of suffering.
May all beings be peaceful and free of suffering.
On behalf of myself and my teachers in Long Beach Meditation, please accept my most humble and sincere bow to you. Thank you kindly for your presence and your practice. May it be for the benefit and happiness of all beings. May all beings be happy. Thank you everybody on Zoom. Thank you everybody in the room. Nicely done.